Hi everyone. In this video, we're going to see how you're going to create a S3 lifecycle configuration in AWS. Uh, Hope like everyone got this AWS Academy login and you're working with this AWS Academy login. Uh, I too got this Academy login and I'm going to use the same login for doing this exp number 4, where we are going to create this S3 lifecycle configuration in AWS. So let me log into this AWS Academy login. Click this student login. I am also provided with the same student login, and you'll be asked to enter your credentials, where I'm going to give my credentials. And let me log into this AWS Academy login. You'll be finding the same Academy Learners Lab in your login also. Click on this AWS Academy Learners Lab. So once you click that, come to the bottom where select models to start the course. Click select models to start the course. And there would be one option called a launch AWS Academy Learners Lab. So click on this particular link. So mine is initiated now. Let me start the lab first. So initially, it would be red in color, and later on, like when I start lab, it turns yellow. And once it's become ready, it means that the AWS management console is ready. The AWS will be turning green. So as usually it depends upon the internet connectivity to get this AWS management console. So it is taking a bit time. So once the management console is ready, and near that AWS, it turns into green. So initially you could see like there is an yellow in color in AWS. So now it has turned green. Click on this AWS. It will take to the management console. So as usual, like you'll be getting the AWS management console as soon as you click that AWS. And so far, how to work with the EC2, IAM and everything. So in order to do this fourth experiment, the creation of S3 lifecycle configuration AWS, you have to get the service of S3. So you can find the S3 service in the recently visited dashboard also, or else like the S3 is not listed here, you can directly type S3 in the search box. So you'll be getting this S3. Click on this S3. S3 is the storage service in AWS. So already I have created a bucket. So I explained like what is bucket, what is object and all. Uh, so I'm going to delete this bucket with a name called, so it is asking to delete all the objects in the bucket, use the empty bucket configuration. So let me create another bucket. Let this bucket be there. So I'm going to create a bucket. So our basic experiment is to create a S3 lifecycle configuration. But in order to do that S3 lifecycle configuration, we need to create a bucket first, where we need to store an object into that particular bucket. So already I've created a bucket with the bucket name called Deban 601. So now I'm going to create another bucket called Deban 402. say an example, like there should be some rules that has been given for bucket name. Like whenever the toughest part in creating a bucket in S3 is the naming part, where like the naming, whatever you the naming factor, actually it's a very important or critical factor in creating a bucket, where you should keep a unique name for that bucket. If because like it is being used globally, like AWS service is used globally, so you need to keep a unique name so that none of them have chosen that particular name. So let us check like whether this particular name has been chosen by someone else or not. So I'm keeping the name as Deepan402, and you need to decide like whether you want to create a bucket in which region, like either US East 1 or US East 2 or US West 1 or US West 2. So as usual, like I'm going to create my bucket in this US East 1 region, and come down, like if you want to enable some access control list, you can enable it. So I'm going to keep as default settings, like I'm going to keep this access control list as disabled as is recommended by the AWS. So by default, so we have blocked all the public access. If you want to make your bucket to be public, then you can disable this block all public access option. So now as of now, like by default, like we have blocked all public access, so I'm going to enable this one. So you similarly, like if you want to allow the thing, like you can disable and you can change according to your own requirement. So if you disable this one, so you want like whether block public access to buckets and objects granted through new access control list or only access control list, there would be option like you can, whatever the option you want, you can do it or select it. But I'm not going to touch anything there in that. So I'm going to block all public access. So I'm going to block all the public access. And if you want to create the versioning of buckets, you can create the version of for that particular bucket. But as of now, like I am disabled this one. So this is a place where I have not created any versioning for the bucket. So I have disabled this bucket versioning option. So for the tags, I have not given any tags for this bucket. And the default encryption I'm going to apply for this bucket would be the server-side encryption with Amazon S3 managed keys. If you want to prefer some other type of encryption, you can go with either server-side or dual server-side AWS key management service or whatever. There are three different types of encryption. Whatever the encryption you want to apply, you can apply for those bucket. So I'm going to apply the first encryption type like SSES3, and I'm not going to create any bucket key for this created bucket. I'm going to sorry, I'm just want to enable the uh, bucket key for this bucket what I created. If you want to disable also, you can disable it. But I'm going with the default settings. So I need to enable or disable that. It's your wish. And the advanced settings like the object log, all things I have disabled it. So now there will be option called create bucket. So the name like what I created for a bucket, so none of them are chosen it. So that bucket has been created. So once the bucket has been created, you will be getting uh, a message like successfully created a bucket with this name called Deepan402. So now what I'm going to do is, so now in order to work with this creation of S3 lifecycle configuration, click on this bucket name called Deepan402. As soon as you click this one, so you can upload. As of now, there is no objects inside the bucket. So whenever we say the objects in AWS, it means that the files we refer in the normal scenario. That might be like an image file or a video file or audio file or a text file or anything or PDF or anything. So now you can see in that bucket you cannot find any objects. So now I'm going to upload a particular object into this particular bucket. So there would be an option called upload. Click this upload. And in this, whether you're going to add a file or add a folder. So I'm not going to prefer this second option called add folder. I'm going to prefer this first option called add files. So click on this add files. It will take to your local drive where you can upload a simple PDF, where I'm going to upload this particular PDF file into my bucket called Deepan402. So you can see that particular object has been stored into my bucket called the 402, and you can specify the permissions here, and you can specify the properties here. Everything you can do it as per your requirement, but I'm not going to do anything because our agenda is to create a S3 lifecycle configuration in AWS, creation of S3 lifecycle configuration in AWS. So for this, we need to upload an object into an bucket, and after uploading an object into an bucket, so we need to upload that particular object into the bucket. So initially it got uploaded, and now we are uploading into that bucket. So now you could see one objects that is being uploaded into the bucket called the 402. You can check it here also. You can go to once again, you can go to S3, like you can click on these buckets where you can find like two buckets I have created. One is the bucket which I already created, and the bucket which I've created for this video. And you could click on this bucket. So by default, we have made it we are not given any public access, though you can see the bucket and objects are not public. So if you have disabled this one, you can, this particular bucket would have been made public. So we are not on this option. Click on this bucket. You can see like initially there were 0 objects, but since we uploaded one object into this bucket, so you could find like one object into this. So now this particular task is over. Now we come to this main part of this experiment where we need to create an S3 lifecycle configuration in this AWS. So in this, we need to click this management tab. If you click this management tab, it will, you'll get one option called create lifecycle rule. So as per our agenda, we need to create an S3 lifecycle rule or the configuration for the bucket what we created or the S3 storage that we have used it. So now we need to click this create lifecycle rule. Click on this create lifecycle rule, and you can create any, you can keep any name for this lifecycle, maybe S3 lifecycle rule for demo. So this is a lifecycle rule name I'm going to create for this demonstration, and you can choose the rule scope, whether you want to limit the scope for this rule using one or more filters, or you're going to apply all the objects that we have stored in the bucket. So now like we have stored only one object in the bucket. So I'm going to apply this particular lifecycle rule for the objects that is stored in the bucket. So now apply to all the objects in the bucket. It will ask you to enable this one. I acknowledge this rule, because if you acknowledge this rule only, the rule will be created. So I'm going to apply for all the objects that we store in that particular bucket. And you know the bucket name is D1402. And you want to define the rule, like whether you want to move the current version of objects between storage class or you want to non-current version. I'm going to use this first option called moving the current version of objects between the different storage class. So you can see like I'm going to click this one, like move current version of objects between the storage classes. And the storage class, initially the objects that is there in the bucket, so that will be moved to this particular storage class called standard infrequent access. So you need to define the number of days, maybe like after 30 days or after 60 days, or even after 180 days also you can have it. So it means that the objects that is being stored in the bucket will be moved to this particular storage class after 180 days. But I'm not going to do it so, like I'm going to make it as short, I'm going to keep only 30 days. So it means that the initially today the object has been created in that particular bucket. After 1 month, so that object will not be available in the bucket, where that particular object will be moved into this particular storage class called standard infrequent access, and you can retrieve it for your future requirements. And I'm going to keep it as simple as possible, so you can see the transition and the expectation actions. So we have created only the current version action, So initially the day 0 on which this object got uploaded, and after 30 days, the object moves to this particular storage class called standard infrequent access. So this is a very simple rule I'm creating. So you can create any kind of a rule according to your requirements. But for this demonstration, I want to keep it as simple as possible. So you want to know like why we create this S3 lifecycle configuration. So I'm going to create a very simple rule, and that's why like this simple rule has been created, where it has only one transaction. So initially the on day 0, the object gets uploaded, and after 30 days, the objects that is there in that particular bucket will be moved to this particular storage class called standard infrequent access. Likewise, you can move into any storage classes like as you use. Um, but I'm using this standard infrequent access in order to move this particular data into this storage class. So now I'm going to click this create tool option. So you could see uh, the lifecycle rule has been created, and you can see the name of this lifecycle rule, which is called as S3 lifecycle rule for demo. And now you can click on this lifecycle rule for demo, and you can see the lifecycle rule has been enabled for that bucket. And if you want to go for any action like disable the rule also, you can disable it. Or if you want to delete the lifecycle rule also, you can delete it. That's it. Thank you. Thank you for watching.